This position is going to blow your mind. And when I first saw it, I could not believe that it was a win for white. Now, why do I say that? Because normally a knight and a bishop and a king against a lone king, although it is a win, it's very difficult. And you have to know exactly what you're doing. And the fact that black has another piece sitting over here, I just thought, no, there's no way. There's no way you can win. That's just going to be impossible. And if you say, well, you could just take the bishop, well, no, you can't, because then you lose your bishop, and this is also just a draw. Okay, you don't have enough material left to get checkmate. So you have to save your bishop, but then black gets a turn. They can save their bishop. The game is going to go on. How in the world can we possibly win? If you would like to pause and think through that before I talk about the solution, what's the winning idea here for white? If you had a chance to look at that, the winning move is bishop to b6. Now, why is this the winning move? Of all the places we could move our bishop to, what does this one do that none of the other moves do? Well, it controls the a5 square right here, okay? And this is kind of an important detail, which I hope you understand at the end of the puzzle. Right now, it probably doesn't make much sense. Why do we care about the a5 square? Like, who cares, right? Let's keep going, and then, like I said, at the end, I think you'll understand. So black now has the problem of, okay, I have to save my bishop, because otherwise we're just going to take it and eventually win. The question is, where does black move the bishop to? You might say, it doesn't really matter. Just choose a random square. Let's just go bishop to b4. But it does matter, and here's why. Actually, before I tell you why, white to play and win, what's white's winning idea if the bishop, let's just say, for example, moves to b4? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is knight to e3 check. And what this move does is puts black in, what do they say? In between a rock and a hard place, right? You have two choices, and they're both bad. You don't want to go to e1 because you get forked, okay? And you don't want to go to g1 because now you're lined up with the bishop and you get a discovered check here, which is also going to lose your bishop. Okay, great. But you say, Nelson, black didn't have to go there. They could have chosen a different square with the bishop, right? Well, let's choose a different one. How about this one? Guess what? Check. Bam, you have the discovered check, and guess what? You lose your bishop again. Okay, let's choose a different one. There's got to be a safe square somewhere, right? Let's go here. Bam, check. You lose your bishop. Now, some of you are thinking, wait a second, Nelson. What about just going over here with the king? Why do you have to go into the discovered check, right? Watch this. Bishop to a5, and notice the king is trapped. King can't move. You have to give up your bishop, and it's just game over. So that's another threat in the position, okay? So now you see you've got this one, you've got this one, and then depending on where you put your bishop, you might lose it to the knight capture. Okay, let's keep thinking through this. So here we have the same exact problem, check, and then bam again, you lose it because of the discovered check. All right, fine. You say, all right, fine, I'll go all the way in the corner. And now the knight is obviously too far to get to the corner. Black has saved the bishop and the game should be fine, right? Wrong. White to play and win. What's the winning move? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is bishop to f2. And what white is doing is saying, look, your king is trapped. You can't move. Normally it would be a stalemate, but it's not a stalemate because you have a bishop over here that you have to move somewhere. But where are you going to move it to? Well, let's just say a random spot. You get checkmated next move. You have to stop this. Except because you put the bishop in the corner, you can't go like this to stop it. And the only other place is here, but then you just lose your bishop and the game is also over. Okay, you're going to get checkmated eventually like that. So now you can see this is the big problem for black in this position. Where do you move the bishop to? There's not really a lot of options, okay? We talked about this one, and 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 this one, I think, or that one's obvious. This one is the same thing. You have a check, and then bam, there's the tactic to lose the bishop, so you can kind of understand that. But there is one square that proves to be a challenge for white, and it's bishop to e1. Now, what's the difference about e1? Well, e1 controls the f2 square. Now, if you remember, what was one of white's ideas before? Bringing the bishop in to trap the king. You can't go there anymore because now black just takes you, right? And this is, you can't win. It's not enough. So that's one point. It's stopping bishop to f2. The other point, though, is that after knight to e3 check, when we sidestep, if the knight tries to move and capture our bishop like it did before, like this, because of it's so close, the king just slides back over, and now you're defending it again. And again, white's like, well, what do I do? I don't know, right? So, very tricky move here by black, bishop back to e1. So, what's the winning idea for white? White to play and win. If you had a chance to look at that, the move is bishop to d4. Now, the reason we're going here is because we actually want to later come back here, which is probably like, Nelson, what are you talking about? So basically what we're doing is trying to take away the squares from the bishop, but at the same time position our pieces to keep creating checkmate threats or threats to trap the bishop in just such a way that black has no options. It's very, very complicated because you look at this position here and you're like, man, I have so many options with my bishop. Like, where do I go to? What does it matter? This is the only one that wins. Okay, so I'm just going to save you from having to try to think through all that. Just trust me when I say this is the only one that wins. And now black plays bishop to a5. And that a5 square is kind of important because it stops the checkmate idea of this. Remember earlier we talked about knight to e3, and if the king comes over, we would checkmate with the bishop on this diagonal I mentioned. Well, now it's controlled. Okay, so that's why black goes there. So what do we do if we're white? How do we win? If you had a chance to look at that, the move is knight to e3 check, and we have the same kind of idea as before. We're going to go here if they step this way, and if they step this way, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. White to play and win. What's the winning move? You had a chance to look at that. So the problem, like I mentioned, is that black's bishop over here is controlling this diagonal. You can't go for a checkmate. So what we do is jump back here. And now we are threatening a checkmate over here. Well, I should let me rephrase that. We are basically putting black in Zugzwang. Now, Zugzwang, as you hopefully remember, is when black has no good moves. They're in an okay position, but they have to move, and then it puts them in a bad position. That's what the problem is. Right now, black would be fine if we go here because they can escape. But watch what happens. If they bring the bishop back here, now it's checkmate. Okay, so that's 1 point. You can't bring the bishop there. Can you bring the bishop here? No. You get forked and you lose your bishop. Okay, so you can't move the bishop there or there. Can you move it here? No, it gets captured. Okay, so you can't move the bishop here or here or here. If you move the bishop anywhere else, bishop to c3 is just checkmate. So you have to leave it there. So there's no bishop moves. Okay, the only move left is king to d2. But that's a fork, and you lose the bishop and you lose the game. Now, some of you might be asking a very interesting question. Earlier when I said you needed to control the a5 square, you might be thinking, Nelson, that doesn't make any sense because let's go all the way back to the beginning. You could just do the same idea that you just mentioned. So for example, let's just say you go bishop c5. And if black goes here, you do the same thing that you just mentioned. Knight to e3 check. Where's the king going to go? If it goes over here, you do that and you win the piece. Okay. So it comes back here. So what do? Well, we do the same kind of idea of bishop to d4, kind of putting black in that same position of what do I do? But here's the difference. Now the king will make a run for it. And yes, you have a fork, but look at this. Our bishop, which was supposed to be actually back on e5, is now in pre, and it gets captured. The difference there, it's super subtle difference. By playing bishop to b6 first, and then going into this main line, you get this exact position, except we are in time to move our bishop back so that if the king tries to run, we don't actually lose our bishop on d4. It's safe on e5. Mind-boggling stuff. I mean, every single move had to be exactly right, precise, or it wouldn't work. Fascinating puzzle. So this is a good one to impress some of your friends with because most of them are going to think there's no way white can win. And you can show them. You can say, hey, you can play this position as black. I'll play it as white. Guarantee you that I'll be able to win. That might be a fun thing to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.